and welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the podcast. How is everybody tonight? I hope everybody had a great week. If you have not liked the channel yet, please do subscribe to the channel. Please like the podcast. Really appreciate it. Don't forget the audio is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, usually by the next day. I try to get it done, but I don't always get it done within the hour. So I like to say by the next day. If you are watching on YouTube, you can leave comments, you can leave questions for our guest, for me, chime in. We love when you do that. We will answer as many of your questions as we can. We will be happy to do that. Now, my guest is right here. My guest is David Gelman. David, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Mary. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. David is he's been on both sides of the aisle because he's a criminal defense attorney, but he's also a former prosecutor. So he gets them coming and going. You can find him on X at David Gelman, Esquire, ESQ, David Gelman, ESQ, and it's Gelman. And we kind of just know each other because we're both from Jersey and we only really know each other from X, which is kind of weird. But we just, I guess, have a lot of the same opinions and views and things like that. So we just decided, hey, let's get you on the show. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much. Because I need your brain.
All right. Hey, yeah, whatever I have left of it today, it's all yours.
Busy day?
A little bit. That's all right, though. It's fun.
Okay, so lots of things to talk about. Do you want to start out with the student protests, or do you want to start out with Trump?
Hey, it's your show. You tell me.
Okay. All right, let's start out with Trump because there's not as much to cover there, I don't think. So the judge today, Judge Marchand, wound up sanctioning Trump. He charged him $1,000 for every time he spoke out and broke the gag order. And some of the things he was charged with doing was going after Michael Cohen, saying things like that. But yet Michael Cohen is allowed to say whatever he wants about Donald Trump. Michael Cohen can go on MSNBC and CNN and all these outlets and say horrible things about Donald Trump, but yet the judge won't let Donald Trump defend himself. And I keep hearing over and over again that this isn't constitutional, yet they're fining him. And the judge said, I wish I could fine him more because this isn't a lot of money to Donald Trump. I wish I could fine him more. So they want to punish him. So if it's in violation of your First Amendment rights, okay, so what recourse do you have in a situation like that?
Well, look, number one, you're exactly right, Mary. This is a totally unconstitutional gag order. In fact, I've been through, I don't know how many trials. I've never once had a gag order placed on a, client or somebody who's opposing us. Now, obviously, I had never had Donald Trump as a client, and I know that's a little bit of a different issue, if you will. But to tell somebody, specifically, the president of the United States, who is campaigning, that he is not allowed to talk about the case, about any of the individuals that are testifying, even though they are speaking about him and, not the best things to say of him as well. And then to say you're not allowed to talk about the judge and his family, it really just boggles my mind, honestly, at this point. I mean, this judge is totally conflicted. We've seen time and time again the rulings that he has, and that he really should have recused himself and allowed another judge to really take the case over. I don't know why he didn't, but every ruling has gone against Trump. The only ruling that hasn't gone against Trump, honestly, is when the judge said today he can attend Barron's graduation. So, at least he has that one. But for the gag order itself, what is going right now, it's under appeal. So even though Donald Trump is allegedly violated it 9 times, and then Thursday, I know the Judge Marchand is having another hearing about other gag order violations. So, I'm sure Donald Trump has his checkbook out for that one as well. All these things are going to be appealed if they're not appealed already, and they're going to be great for a reversal because there's a lot of issues in this trial, and the gag order is just one of many, it seems like. But how you're not allowing an individual express himself and talk about the case and defend themselves, it's probably the first you'll ever hear of this.
It's interesting. You said, I don't know why the judge didn't recuse himself. I think we all pretty much know why the judge didn't recuse himself, right? I mean, for the same reason this entire case is being brought. The FEC, the Federal Election Commission, said there's no crime here. So they chose not to go after him. The DOJ chose not to go after him. And Cyrus Vance, the previous Attorney General for the Southern District of New York, chose not to go after Donald Trump, said there's no crime. So Alvin Bragg wasn't going to charge him either until what was his name? Peter wrote the book. The guy who worked with Cyrus Vance, and he got so upset with Cyrus Vance he quit, and he writes this book to shame Alvin Bragg into charging Donald Trump. And that's why we are where we are. This is a show trial. This is a good old Soviet-style show trial without the cage that the defendant's in.
You're exactly right. I mean, again, you're talking about one, it's a record-keeping case. It's not even a crime. And then if you really want to say it's a crime, okay, it's a misdemeanor, maybe, and that's really stretching it. But the time has lapsed to bring this to prosecution. All right, the statute of limitations 2 years. This happened in 2016 while Trump was the president. So he never even did any bookkeeping. I remember, the individual who wrote the check and wrote this in a ledger is an employee of the Trump organization. So there was never anything that he did. And so far in the trial, nothing has shown that Trump did or knew of any information. It's all trying to muddy him and try to, hurt him, not allow him to campaign. But look at what's happening right now. It's backfiring on the Democrats, and especially on Joe Biden, because all it is Trump coverage 24/7 on every news channel. Doesn't matter if it's mainstream or not mainstream. Everybody's talking about him. So he's almost like getting free publicity, if you will. And people can see how asinine this is. It really is insane. This is like a third world country.
But okay, we can say it's insane, but we can say the statute of limitations expired. Then how do they bring a case if the statute of limitations expired? How does that happen?
Go to New York City, and you can do anything in New York City.
Well, okay, so the statute of limitations expired, so it's going to get thrown out on appeal because of that. It's going to get thrown out of appeal because he somehow made misdemeanors into felonies, which I don't even understand how you do that in order to bring the case. And it's also supposedly election interference, but you can't try election cases, right, in a state court.
Correct. Yeah. What they're trying to do is they're taking this misdemeanor that, again, statute of limitations have already said you can't use it, and they're bootstrapping it to a alleged crime. Like they say it's in furtherance of a crime. But here's the thing, and so far they don't know a crime. What crime are they alleging that it's in furtherance of? There is no crime. So again, this is it's a bogus case. It's a sham case. And we all know why it was being brought. Because if you try to bring this in any other state, in any other jurisdiction, hell, in any other jurisdiction in New York, this would never happen. So you know why exactly where it's happening. New York City, Manhattan, where it's extremely liberal, and Alvin Bragg has a bone to pick because he campaigned on this, saying, I'm going to get Trump. I'm going to get Trump. And he's doing this to try to further his career and help the Biden administration and the Biden campaign try to keep Trump off the campaign trail and become, or not become the president, which it's backfiring tremendously.
Well, it is to a certain extent, but the Democrats, in my humble opinion, just want to get the conviction so they can campaign on Donald Trump being a convicted felon. How can you vote for convicted felon? Right. So that's what this is about. Even they don't care if it gets overturned. As long as they can get a conviction before the election, they can paint him as a convicted felon. If it gets overturned afterwards, oh, well, we're sorry. Our bad. Didn't mean to do it. Let me ask you, though, it seems to me as if the judiciary is a power unto itself, as if the legal profession of which you are part is a power unto itself. If you are in, let's say, a very liberal state, you're in New Jersey, you're in the state of New Jersey, and you're a blue law firm, and we know there are several very big blue law firms in this state, and they're usually the ones who go to the Supreme Court because we don't vote, they get handpicked, and they all come up through, the same law firms. They all go on to this New Jersey Supreme Court. It's an old boys club, and it's very blue. you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can do something like this, like what they're doing in New York, and you can throw out the laws. You could send some poor soul to court, bankrupt them in the process. And then in the end, once they've lost everything and they finally get it overturned, no one's held accountable. No one is held accountable. Alvin Bragg will never be held accountable. He'll never pay a price for ignoring the statute of limitations. He will never pay a price for taking a misdemeanor and saying that he committed another crime, but we don't know what the crime is. I didn't even think it was legal to charge someone and say, well, you did this in the commission of a crime, but we'll tell you what the crime is once we get going with the trial. I didn't even think that was legal.
Well, it's not. I mean, again, their theory is totally flawed. And again, the only reason why it's happening is because you're in New York City. You're exactly right. The judiciary is pretty much a power in and of itself. And it is a shame that's where it's at. Now, if it's a federal case, then at least you have the Supreme Court and you have all the federal courts at your discretion or at your will, where you can at least go appeal it. But in New York, and if it's a state court, you're not going to have that luxury. You're going to have to stay in that whole state and go through the appellate division of that state and or the other divisions of that state until you can find a federal issue, like a due process issue, which again, I'm sure it's going to be an issue on this one as well. But to go to your point, yes, you and I, look, we're in Jersey. You got New York. You got a lot of these blue states in the northeast quarter of our country. And it seems more and more that the judiciary is almost like a cog of the political party. And frankly, this wasn't like this, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's really become a weaponization, if you will. And it's totally not, it's a disgrace, number one. And it's not what our founding fathers wanted. And it's not what the, attorneys who have been practicing for years and years, or even attorneys who have passed away years ago, they didn't have this. So this is totally new, and it's a nuance, and it's scary. It really is, because if you don't do what the politicians in your particular state or city want you to do, if you don't play ball, you can be charged and you can go bankrupt.
Yeah, exactly. But again, there's no means, there's no mechanism to hold these people accountable, and they know it. So they can do what they want with abandon. They can drive you into the ground. Look what they did to Michael Flynn, right? So they can do that. They can ruin you, and especially some little guy who's not named Michael Flynn or Donald Trump. Hold on, my camera's shaking because my cat is sitting on the opposite side of my computer and she's scratching herself right now. So it's not an earthquake in New Jersey, I swear.
We've only had two of them.
They just had another one over the weekend.
I know, yeah.
It's crazy. But anyway, and that needs to change. You're like, well, they can be disbarred. Okay, well, the bar isn't going to disbar them because they're all part of the same club.
No, well, you're exactly right. I mean, look, Fannie Willis should have been disbarred a long time ago. That hasn't happened. Alvin Bragg, he's doing a political persecution, if you will, or prosecution, so he should be disbarred. No, the Bar Association won't touch anything like this. The only way to get these people out are to vote them out. And again, look at where you're at. New York City and Manhattan, very liberal, where, if you say the name Trump, it looks like you have horns on your head. So that's the only way to really get retribution from these people is to vote them out. And I don't see it happening.
In New Jersey, we don't get to vote for them.
That's correct. Yeah, the Superior Court judges, that we don't. And then they get tenure after, 8 or 9 years. So at that point, it doesn't matter what they do or what they say. They can't go anywhere. Yeah, it really sucks.
It really does. It's a terrible system, despite you being part of it. I'm going to take some of the comments here, and it's just Ron is here, Bill's here, Watching Your Back is here. Scott says they also like giving answers, not just asking questions. He says, I bet the reason the judge is doing it is because Donald has this very powerful demeanor and the judge just wants to be a tyrant. After all, I've always heard that judges are tyrants.
I do appear in front of them occasionally where they may have a little black robe disease, as I like to call it. This judge definitely seems like he has that. There probably has other political issues going on as well, I would think. But yeah, he doesn't like anybody taking charge, and it doesn't really seem like he's a big fan of Donald Trump.
No, I wonder if his daughter's views have anything to do with that.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. Why? Her making money? You think that's going to have anything to do? Nah.
Gregory says it's the show me the man and I'll show you the crime paradigm.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I mean, hey, they're making up crimes on Donald Trump left and right. So yeah, I can see that definitely being one of the paradigms that you can look at for something like this. Again, look at this case. Look at the Fannie Willis case in Georgia, and then the federal cases that are against Donald Trump, where he's being charged with all these different crimes. But you look at Biden, who did the exact same thing, if not worse, on multiple occasions, and he doesn't even get told about anything. He doesn't get charged at all. So again, it's against an individual because they don't like him, they don't like his policies, and they are afraid of what he's going to do if he gets back in power.
That's exactly it. Steve Redden from Now Tax USA says, sorry I'm late, mowing the mountaintop and listening to Mary. I'm still confused. If a judge violates your civil rights, is the judge prosecutable?
No, I wish he was, but no. The only penalty or that he can really face would be some type of an impeachment or censure by the state. And look, we all know that's not going to happen. So yeah, he can do everything he wants, but until he does something illegal or illegal that I guess is very out in the open, he's going to keep doing what he's doing, and he'll get slapped down by the appellate division.
So are you telling me that judges have immunity?
They don't have immunity. Like, they can't go out and shoot somebody, but
right.
But look, if they're caught with let's just say taking a bribe, great example. Yeah, they're going to get criminally prosecuted for that, along with getting impeached and taken out of power. But if they are just doing rulings like the judge is doing, which are again totally biased, but they have legal reasoning behind it, no matter how terrible the legal reasoning is, there's really not much you're going to be able to do. Yeah, it's a tough situation, and the system it really needs to get revamped.
Yeah, Scott says there's a system called redress here in Kentucky if there's an issue with a judge here.
We don't have all we have here is you can make an ethics complaint, which I'm sure multiple people have already, and they can be referred to the bar, but the bar is not going to do anything.
No. That's why I want to get the hell out of New Jersey. Porchview Farm says the whole situation is frightening. Yes, it is. So Steven says, is violating your civil rights illegal?
Well, it is. I mean, if somebody violates your civil rights, depending on the position, yeah, it's not. Yes, it is illegal. However, the recourse, especially in this case for Donald Trump, is to go to the appellate division, and the appellate division has to reverse this judge.
Right. By the way, are you sitting in a vault?
So, kinda, yeah. This is my vault. This is my conference room. So, like, whenever I'm on TV, everybody asks me the same thing. Is that a vault? Are you in it? And I have a bank as my office, as my law office. I demoed it, but you can't do anything with the vault. So, like.
Oh, so you kept the door. That's hilarious.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's big.
Wow, what do you keep in there? Anything good? Like all your supplies? Like all your
well, I got a nice little bar in there. I got a cigar lounge. I got a bunch of stuff.
Can you accidentally lock yourself in there?
No, I took the lock out, but you can lock it from the outside. So if somebody's in there and they get mad at me or something, or vice versa, you can just turn it, and they're not getting out.
Okay, good. Roger Rick says, I'm coming in scratchy. That's interesting. I sound fine to me, so I don't know. Okay, so, the immunity trial. There was something interesting that, let's see, who did this? Who reprinted it? Hold on. Let me see. This is Business Insider. And am I coming in scratchy? Oh, I am? Okay, my IT department's here telling me I'm coming in scratchy. That's what I have to do. Okay, hold on 1 second. I have to disconnect my headset and then reconnect it. I'll be right back. Okay, so how do I do that? The bottom right. The bottom right. Right here? Right here? Uh-huh. What do I do? Okay, let's see if that's better. Still scratchy?
Yep.
Okay, let's see if that's better. Okay. Oh, the IT department's checking audio. Still scratchy? I blame you. Sure, we're going to switch headsets out. I blame the IT department. Excuse me, technical difficulties.
You got to blame somebody.
What's this one? Okay, let's see if that's better. Is that better?
No.
Nope, you can't hear me at all now.
Oh, it's still scratchy.
Oh dear, here we go. Oh, it's not scratchy still. Yeah, I can't go up. All right, well, we'll have to just deal with this for now. We're just going to have to deal with it for now the way it is. Sorry. All right. So my husband just said that you have to talk more than me.
Okay.
I don't hear him now. I don't hear him at all. Can I just put the ones back in? Okay, let's see if that's better. I don't know. I don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. Anyway, so Business Insider found a 2009 legal written by Judge Kavanaugh, Brett Kavanaugh, Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And they say it indicates how he may decide in this immunity case. We were just talking about whether judges have immunity. There are certain. Are we good?
Yeah.
There are certain professions, I think, like police officers, etc., have a certain amount of immunity in the commission of their jobs, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what they're talking about in this immunity case, like because if they decide that presidents don't have immunity, as soon as they become not president, right? As soon as they leave office, they would be open to all sorts of lawsuits, like the servicemen and women who were killed at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan. Their families would be able to sue Joe Biden, right? The families of the victims that the Americans that Barack Obama killed with a drone in Afghanistan, those families would be able to sue. So, and you could go on and on and on about a lot of different things that, you know, I guess everybody who claims they were hurt by the COVID vaccine can sue Trump, because he was the one who was the architect, you know, it was happened under his watch. So that's what they're talking about here. And Judge Kavanaugh said in this article in 2009 in the Minnesota Law Review, he says that the public grossly underestimates the difficulty of the president's job, and that anyone elected to hold office should be able to focus on his never-ending tasks with as few distractions as possible. He does go on to say that includes criminal prosecution while in office. And he said the point is not to put the president above the law or eliminate checks on the president, but to defer litigation and investigations until the president is out of office. But he also does say that an impeached and removed president is subject to criminal prosecution afterwards. So knowing what you know about law, and I'm sure, you know, Supreme Court watching to you is like, you know, judicial porn. I can just imagine lawyers.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah,
lawyers all around C-SPAN watching the the goings on. Right. So let me ask you, what do you think happens here?
In Trump's immunity case, I think what they're going to do is, and just from the arguments that happened last week, I think they're going to say there is going to be some type of immunity. There has to be. Now, I know Donald Trump and he wants total immunity. I don't think that they're going to go with that just from the questions that were being asked from all the judges, not just to Donald Trump's attorneys, but to the DOJ's attorneys. What they're probably going to do is remand it back to the district court to get the record straight, because they keep alleging all these different acts that occurred. And the questioning, when I was listening to it, the Judge Alito and Judge Thomas and Judge Roberts, excuse me, and Amy Coney Barrett, they were all asking about specific instances. Like, well, okay, if you do this while you're president, is this a personal matter or is this a presidential matter? And it's almost impossible to really tell what is personal and what is presidential when you're the president. Because when you're the president, you're not the president for 23 hours a day. You're the president for 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So you always are doing you're doing presidential duties. Doesn't matter what the hell it is. You could be golfing with a congressman or a senator, whatever. You're still doing presidential duties. You're still talking about world matters and whatnot. So I don't know how you're really going to find a clear line between personal and presidential. And they're going to remand it back to the district court, I believe, to see if they can try to clear the record, if you will. And Jack Smith is going to have a heck of a time trying to do that. And when they do that, there's just no way that these cases are going to be heard prior to the election. So whatever's going to happen, the Supreme Court gave Donald Trump a huge win, in my opinion.
And it also seems as if Judge Eileen Cannon, by declassifying all of these papers and everything, you're really starting to see that Jack Smith, that there was coordination between NARA and the White House. And now it looks like there were 4 pallets that came from the White House. It sat somewhere in Virginia and then were just sent to Mar-a-Lago. And it wasn't even stuff that necessarily they don't even know if Donald Trump requested it or if it was just sent there. And so now the question is, were any of the classified documents that they found in those pallets that were sent to Donald Trump? Because the whole thing, if you look at the coordination between the White House, Jack Smith, NARA, DOJ, FBI, the whole bit, looks like it was a setup. Like they did it purposely, which makes sense when you figure that Joe Biden wasn't charged at all. But, because he's a kind old man with a bad memory. And that was their out. Their out. Let's see.
Exactly. Well, if Donald Trump was a kind old man, they'd probably still go after him for what he's trying to do or what he's done. But again, he's not Biden, so he gets a free pass, apparently.
Well, because with Biden, it's different.
Yeah, you're right.
Watching Your Back says tech support has arrived. Yay. Porchview Farm says this is an excellent guest in discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Star Driver 1 says, good evening, Your Majesty. Good evening. All right, that's going to be interesting to see. So do you see, I just see a lot of cracks in a lot of these cases, especially Jack Smith's, which they really thought that the Alvin Bragg one would be the one that would fall apart. And that's the one that seems like they might get somewhere with this, because Judge Marchant, he is rolling this, trying to go as fast as he possibly can, because he wants a conviction before the election. He wants to be able to paint Donald Trump as a convicted felon for at least 4 months. That's what the Democrats want, and he wants to deliver it. So, but it seems as if Jack Smith, which was the one that people thought had a chance, is going to fall apart. The Fani Willis case, what happens with that? That thing's out to pasture, right?
Yeah, I don't see the Fani Willis thing ever coming to fruition, at least not before the election. I mean, this is still on appeal for Fani Willis to be allowed to even be the prosecutor in this matter, or her office being the prosecutor. So that's not going to happen. And remember, we're in what? Today's April 30th. So you got May. We're in May pretty much, right? So right. What happens here? Now you got summertime. People go away in the summer. People take vacations on the summer. And the judicial system is very well known to, I'd say, slow down in the summer months because of these vacations and whatnot. So I don't see how a lot of things are going to be happening, especially with the Jack Smith cases like you're talking about. I think there's a lot of issues there that are going to be having to get resolved. And especially if this immunity issue from the Supreme Court gets remanded back to the district court, there's nothing is going to happen at all. Again, you're probably right. The only thing that is going to happen or that will potentially be finalized is this New York City case. Now, it's going to be hilarious, in my opinion, if this happens, if there's going to be a hung jury. Because remember, all you need is one juror out of the 12 to say, you know what, I don't know if this is happening. There's some reasonable doubt here, and that's all they need. Now, again, I know we're talking about New York City, very blue, very liberal, but if one person out of those 12 can actually get a conscience and listen to everything fairly and open-minded, it's going to be a hung jury. And then who God knows when this will be tried again, if it is ever tried.
Now, there are 2 attorneys on the jury, which I find interesting. How they're allowed to serve on juries, I don't know about that. But they're probably Democrats, right? That's the first thing. But do you think, and nothing would happen to them, but an attorney who listens to this knows that this is wrong, knows that the statute of limitations, right? Like, they know all this stuff. Do you think that they would still vote to convict knowing that, just because they hate Trump so much?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but I think what the I guess the ultimatum was, or what the objective to have these 2 attorneys on there would be, that they're kind of strong jurors, that the other jurors will probably come to them talking about the case or asking questions in the back room. And hopefully these attorneys they took an oath that, they have to judge fairly and impartially. Hopefully that they will at least explain that, look, what is reasonable doubt? If you have any type of doubt at all, that is reasonable doubt and you cannot convict. I don't know. Again, we're talking about New York City, but, they should do their job, at least, in the legal profession, and advise the jurors, hey, look, it's not all cut and dry here, people. There's a lot of different issues, and Donald Trump, there's reasonable doubt, so you can't convict him.
Now, there's one this is kind of on a tangent, which sometimes happens because of the comments and stuff from listeners. And I have this in my prep for tomorrow, because I'm back on the air tomorrow, by the way, in for Rob Carson tomorrow on Newsmax Radio for the rest of the week. Just look on TuneIn for WCBM Radio. WCBM, that's his home station out of Baltimore, or you can listen online at WCBM Radio, noon to 3 tomorrow. Gregory says it's that DOJ miscreant Matthew Colangelo that's the driving force in New York. Now, who is Michael Colangelo? Well, he's currently, today, Jim Jordan announced that he is launching an investigation into Michael Colangelo as a person of interest. He spent 2 years serving in the DOJ as an acting associate attorney general before joining the Manhattan DA's office as senior counsel in December of 22. So in this letter that Jordan sent out to start this investigation, he's calling for more detail on why Colangelo ended up leaving the DOJ to work on the prosecution of Trump, as he was appointed in 22 while Bragg was still investigating Trump in regards to the payment made to Stormy Daniels. Like, isn't that just convenient that someone from Biden's DOJ leaves the DOJ to go work in the Southern District of New York and just happens to be working on the Trump trial?
Well, not only that, remember, this Colangelo fella, he was not like a low guy on the totem pole in the DOJ. He was a number 3 guy. So number 3 guy, and then he says, I'm going to go to the DA's office and be an assistant prosecutor there. Give me a break. This guy is a guy, he's the main cog in this. And then thank God Jim Jordan today is starting to ask questions about this and going to have subpoena powers to find out exactly how this occurred. Look, if he did this on his own, all right, I guess kudos. But there is no way in blue hell that he did this on his own. This was orchestrated from the top down, because he is the one, he gave the opening statement in this. He pretty much built this case from the ground up. He also helped out with the Fulton County matter, from what I understand. And obviously he's been on the federal matters of Donald Trump as well. So this guy has his hands tied in everything. So, and look, are you going to be surprised that after the Donald Trump matter closes, he goes back to the DOJ? I sure as hell wouldn't.
No, not at all. But this is political persecution. It's totally
biased. It's political. It's fine. Look, he's probably going to get like an appointment now after this.
Right. Well, Putin would be proud, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I want to move on because I don't want to keep you too long. So we try to keep the podcast to an hour. I try, but sometimes we get into some really good discussions and it goes longer. So I'm going to try not to do that to you. But this has been a really good discussion. Okay, I want to talk to you about the where did the papers go? Hold on, my husband moved the papers. Hang on, the IT department moved my papers. Okay, they're over here. So let's talk about these, and I don't like to call them protesters. I call them Nazis on college campuses because they're Nazis.
Yep.
When there's a picture, David Asman posted a picture of the brown shirts in Hitler's Germany with their arms linked, standing in front of a public building to keep the Jews out. They're doing the same thing on school campuses at Columbia. They won't let Jewish students into certain parts of the campus. Like kids can't get to their classes and they're linking arms to keep them out. I'm like, oh, look, leftists are going to leftist. They did it in the 30s in Germany. They did it in the 50s to keep black kids out of schools in the South. That was the Democrats. And the Democrats are at it again, doing it now at these college campuses. And they're little monsters. I think they've lost control of Frankenstein's monster that they've created. And this is going on. So I keep hearing people say, but these are peaceful protests. What about free speech? It's my right to free speech. Isn't there a line? Yes, I have the right to free speech. Yes, I have the right to say horrible, terrible things if I want to. We know that, the KKK was allowed to march in Skokie because the Democrats had a party to go to, I guess. So they wanted to march. So they were allowed to do that because we allow free speech. And I'm a big fan of, if you hear something you don't like, walk away. But you can't walk away when you're trying to get to class and people won't let you get there. To me, that's not free speech.
Well, you're exactly right. And I saw that picture that David Asman posted today. And I love David Asman. I think he's
Great.
Brilliant. And I love watching him on Fox. And the picture, and I saw your response to it as well. I mean, it is so mind-blowing, the similarities between Nazi Germany and what's happening today at Columbia and all these other colleges right now. I mean, number one, I don't understand why they are for Hamas and for Palestine, but that's for a different discussion. I don't think they're very intelligent.
Because they're idiots.
Yeah, well, exactly. And they're going to an Ivy League school. That's the beauty of it. But
education does not equal intelligence.
You kidding? You aren't kidding. But for free speech, look, yes, everybody, you're allowed to say bad things and mean things and whatever else. Again, hey, that's your First Amendment right. However, the free speech cannot incite riot or cannot terrify individuals enough to make them be scared in their own skin and not allow them to go to certain places. I mean, can you imagine this? The graduation for Columbia is now canceled, right? USC is now canceled. Probably some other colleges are now canceled. Well, their graduation was also, these students who are graduating also were canceled 4 years ago because of COVID. So they'll never have a graduation because of the stupidity of these students, what they're doing. Now, the universities, they really need to grow some balls because, number one, all this is occurring on private property. So it's not like it's occurring in a public park, public facility, whatever it is. It's all privately owned places. They have no right to do this and to be there and interfere with school functions and school outcomes. So now they have to close school because of this. They should be calling in the police, and they have a right to call in the police to get these individuals out of the places that they are being held, that they are holding court, if you will, right now, and disrupting the public presence of everybody and disrupting the school policies and the school, just schooling in general. So yeah, this has gone way beyond what a First Amendment right allows you to do. And I don't know why the schools are allowing it to keep going.
Well, okay, so the cynic in me, and if anybody who knows me knows, I'm a glass half empty kind of gal, because I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than horribly disappointed. So I just expect the worst, and every now and then the best happens, which is good. So it's just weird to me that it just seems to be like election year rioting is the new norm, We had the Summer of Love in 2020. We're going to have another Summer of Love in 2024. We had a pandemic in 2020, and it looks like we're gearing up for the bird flu pandemic in 2024, right? So there's just some weird, and the rioting's always brought to you by the left, the tolerant part, the party of tolerance. It always seems to be brought to us by the left. So I don't think, but here's the thing here is it doesn't make sense because they're hurting Biden. They're hurting Democrats. So that's where it doesn't make sense to me. So there may be a flaw in my theory because that part of it kind of doesn't make sense. All right, let's see what viewers have to say. Porchview Farm says Mary McCord needs to be investigated. Yes, Mary McCord needs to be investigated. She also says my brother-in-law has probably trained these people. If you watch the podcast, we all know that Thanksgivings at Porchview Farm's house are really interesting on the political spectrum. She's got some issues going on there. Joseph, David, as someone that knows what you're talking about, regarding campus protests, isn't there language in college acceptance / registration that calls for immediate expulsion for these types of behavior?
That's a great question. Yeah, there probably is. I haven't seen any documents from the colleges for a while because I've been out of college for quite a bit now. But yeah, you're not allowed to incite riots and you're not allowed to disrupt schooling. So yes, there is. Now, it is a discretionary punishment though. So there's always the shall or the may part of it. So a student shall be punished or may be punished. Now, I don't see Columbia doing anything, or pretty much any of these other schools doing anything. They keep threatening, saying, you can get expelled, you can get suspended, but nothing happened. I mean, look, was it today? There was yesterday, there was a 2:00 deadline from Columbia that was imposed to get the heck off of the public property or their property. And what happened? Nothing. It went in past, and then they went and confiscated a whole building there and just broke into it. So all these words and all these actions from the university, or lack thereof, if you will, is contributing to this in a way. But yeah, that goes back to the point. They are allowed to take action on these students. But if you don't take action, what's going to happen? The students are going to keep doing it.
But this is an entire generation that was raised without consequences. This was the generation that was raised by my generation that wanted to be their kids' friends. And I don't have kids, but I watched some of my friends and I was like, I want my daughter to be, my daughter's my best friend. And I'm like, no, there's something wrong with that. You're supposed to be her parent, not her best friend. My parents were quite clear in that we're not your friends department. You have friends. We're not them. We're your parents. I don't care about your self-esteem. It's just the way it was.
I get it.
Yeah, we turned around and raised our kids in total opposite. There were no, I don't want them to work. I want them to enjoy being kids. Okay, so now you got a kid at a really pricey university. They're going into debt, and these schools have endowments worth tens of billions of dollars. And your kid has to take out a loan to go to that school. I don't understand why. And then Joe Biden, of course, says, oh, don't worry, I'll have somebody else pay for it. I'll have a waitress and a coal miner pay for your kids, college education. And so they don't have to pay that off. They've never had consequences their entire life. So when, like in Texas, when the state troopers went in, there was the video of the guy in Georgia. Did you see that?
I love that. I love that.
And he picks him up to drag him away, and he's got him in handcuffs, and he's dragging the kid away, and his long flowing blonde ponytail comes out of his keffiyeh. What do they call it? Keffiyeh, like your Palestinian dude. And then he falls on the ground. He's screaming, "You're hurting me!" And he falls on the ground like my cat on a leash. You know what I mean? Just falls over. And so the state trooper, who's so much, bends over, puts one hand between his legs, put the other one's through the arm. He's got this, and just picks him up and walks away with him. And the kid's screaming.
It's amazing. That trooper really needs to go to New York. All right, and he could clean some things out real quick. But oh my God, that would never happen here in New Jersey, as you're well aware, and certainly not in Columbia. But that is exactly the type of action that needs to be taken. But I don't see it happening. Go down south, and they really know what to do there.
Yeah, well, they don't put up with any crap. But here's the thing, when you proclaim that you're a member of a terrorist group, when you say we are Hamas, which is a terror group, a designated terror group by the United States government, designates Hamas a terror organization. Isn't that a different ball game at that point?
I mean, it should be, like, again, if you're inciting a riot, and again, look at the KKK, perfect example. They were denounced as a terrorist, as a terror organization at one point as well, or they still are, obviously, because of the hate speech and the hate group. But you're still allowed to, say what you want and all, but you can't incite violence, and that is what's happening. And you cannot interfere with activities and the day-to-day operations of certain things, aka a school, a university. So yeah, I mean, it really doesn't make sense. And then yes, like you're saying, to keep going to the Hamas and say, we are Hamas and all, that should just be another insightfulness, if you will, that is causing terror, and it's causing a riot, if you will. So I don't know. Maybe they like Hamas there at Columbia. It boggles my mind.
None of it makes sense to me, because a swastika, I think, should be triggering to pretty much anybody, right? It should be, especially the Jewish kids on campus. Although my family's from Germany, and my grandfather's brother was put in a concentration camp, because they eventually came for the Catholics too. And I think that's insulting, and it's very, listen, I can walk right past it and go, idiots, and it doesn't bother me. But I can understand where some people, it's threatening to some people. I get that. And the only reason I say that is, if you're a man who wakes up one day and says he suddenly feels like a woman, and you're going to Dylan Mulvaney it through your day, you should be allowed to go into the girls' locker room and change and let Big Jim and the twins hang out, regardless. And it doesn't matter if those women are insulted or terrified, they have to put up with it, right? They have to put up with it, and they have to stuff their feelings away. But these kids, they don't want to stuff their feelings away, right? It's insulting to them that you tell them they can't say this, they can't say that. Oh, free speech. But if those girls in the locker room don't want to be with that boy, their free speech is gone. Then it doesn't matter, right? So it's always what they want. It's never what anybody else wants.
Yeah, it's a one-way street with them. And they also don't understand that what they're campaigning for, what they're, trying to say, oh, we want Hamas and, Palestine and, all this stuff. If they went to Palestine, if they went to Gaza, do they think that they would be able to do the same things? That's the craziest part of all of this. I mean, they are wanting people to have freedom, and they're supporting a cause and a country and all that would never allow them to do what they're trying to do now.
Send him a little note that says, don't go to any meetings on a rooftop. To your point, Porchview Farm says cosplaying Palestinians and terrorists.
It said what? I'm sorry, what was it?
I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Cosplaying Palestinians and terrorists. Yes, exactly. Let's see. Joe says they're idiots, not useful ones. Star Driver 1 says anyone here on a student visa who protests needs to be deported. I would think that that's probably part of the agreement when you come to this country. Like, if you get arrested, we get to deport you. But I think everyone who comes here knows we don't deport anybody. So you can do whatever you want here, and we ain't deporting you, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, but that is a rule. Part of your visa process here is you can't do anything illegal. You really got to, stay clean, keep your nose to the ground. And I don't think anything's going to happen to these people, but you never know.
Gregory says these kids are the modern day equivalent of the Nazi SA, the Sturmabteilung, the stormtroopers. Yeah, they're instead of the brown shirts, they're the black shirts, the Democrats' black shirt.
That's a good way to put it.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought expulsion was the punishment. Long time since I was in college, but I thought this language is clear in registration. Yeah, every school has, I'm sure, I don't know where you went to school. Where I went to school, I went to Villanova. You had this whole student, a code of conduct agreement. Mm-hmm. And in it clearly stated you had to sign it, your parents had to sign it, and you had to do it every year. And it said in there that, if you do certain things, you get kicked off campus. And if you get kicked off campus, they're not giving your parents their money back for room and board. They get to keep it, and you have 3 weeks to find a new place to live, sayonara, and that's it. And they enforced it. I know they enforced it because I know somebody who got kicked off.
Those are the good old days, Mary. Nowadays, if you're going to the SEC, going down south, they still do that. All right, I went to school down south. I went to the University of Arkansas, actually, believe it or not. And
Razorback.
I remember they didn't mess around with that kind of stuff, just like you're saying at Villanova. But you go up here, I mean, hell, pretty much you get a medal now if you're protesting and you're trying to break into buildings and whatnot. It seems like there's no consequences.
Yeah, the Augustinians aren't Jesuits. They don't put up with anything. They put up with zero crap. And my niece was there during the 2020 election and 2016 election. And when Trump won, I think it was like her freshman year. And I said to her, I said, oh, well, were there protests and, did you guys get time off from finals? Because it was towards the end of the year. She goes, oh no, Aunt Mary, the priests don't care. And I was like, good. I'm glad they don't care. She's like, no, they didn't care. We had to go to class. I'm like, good, that's great.
It's refreshing to hear somebody's doing it, right?
Yeah, well, like I said, Augustinians aren't Jesuits. Joseph says, Columbia, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, the total value of the endowment was $13.64 billion. Yep. And that's not even in the top 5.
Jeez.
It's not even in the hold on, I may have it here. Hang on. Do I have it? Oh yeah, here we go. The top 5 endowments. Harvard's endowment is $50,877,680,000. $50 billion. It's basically almost $51 billion. Yale is $41 billion. Stanford, $36 billion. Princeton, $35 billion. And MIT comes in at a paltry $25 billion.
They're poor.
Pikers.
What needs to happen is you got to have these big donors like Robert Kraft, perfect example.
Right. Yes.
He said, I'm not, enough of this. I'm done. I'm taking away my money. I'm not donating until all this crap gets sorted out and you grow some balls, pretty much, university. And that's exactly what needs to happen with these donors and with the endowment, all these universities. And I know firsthand, because I was talking to somebody today, that a lot of companies, they're not, and law firms, they're not going to be hiring individuals from these places, especially ones that participated in this type of chaos that is going on.
You know what though? If they're not charged, if they're allowed to let go and they're not charged, if they're arrested but not charged, you'll never know.
Yeah, I know.
That's part of it.
Yeah, but they got social media at least now. Hopefully we'll get everybody,
Joseph says, David, serious question. Wouldn't some of the chants, etc., potentially allow prosecution as hate crimes? Which, by the way, before you answer that, I hate the idea of a hate crime. If you commit a crime against someone, it's not because you love them. It's usually because you're really not happy with it, probably borderline hate them. So I don't find, like, if I get stabbed by a black guy and he's calling me all sorts of names and it's a hate crime, but if he stabs another black guy, it's not a hate crime, so the stabbing isn't as bad. I think that being stabbed is bad, regardless of whether it's a hate crime or not.
I think you're exactly right. And I never thought of hate crime like that, Mary, where there's a love crime and a hate crime. That's a good one. I'm going to start using that one a little more.
Feel free.
But as for the messaging or the sayings and chants that have been said, again, a lot of it is protected by free speech. People can talk about or can say very hateful things. Now, if it's talking about an individual's ethnicity, if it's talking about their gender, if it's talking about their race, then there could be potential there could be potential hate crime aspects to it. And every state is different when it comes to their hate crime rules. The federal government does have a statute as well, which the states do have to follow, and it's kind of modeled after the same thing. but you have to look at intent. You have to look at what was said and in the manner it was said as well. These hate crimes are very difficult to prove, really, and that's why you don't really hear too many of them. I'm not saying they're never happening, but you don't hear about too many of them. And in this situation, even though they're saying these horrible things to these individuals, especially to Jewish individuals, they're probably nothing's going to happen.
No, nothing will happen. And I find it interesting. Someone had said, if this were a KKK group that was calling for the death of all the Black students on campus and camping out in the Village Green there, I'm pretty sure it would have lasted about 10 minutes.
Exactly. If that.
Right. Right.
If that. Come on. It's rules for me, not for thee.
Yep, exactly. No, rules for thee, not for me.
That's right. Yeah, rules for thee, not for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Okay, I'm going to ask you, let's see. Joseph says, DOJ has prosecuted numerous hate crimes recently. I'm with you, Mary. I think it's silly. A hate crime implies some level of hate, but some high-profile ones like Jussie Smollett, etc. Juicy Smollett.
That guy's he's a gift that keeps on giving.
He is. Did you see the Dave Chappelle commentary on him?
Hilarious. No, which one? No, I don't think so. I love Chappelle. He's hilarious.
It was when he first came back. He had that green army jumpsuit on in it. It was hilarious, and he does it Juicy Smollett, and then everybody starts laughing. He goes, "Come on, people! Come on, Black people! You can laugh." It's very funny. It's very funny. So I want to ask you a question. I'm assuming you're Jewish. I'm going to go out on a limb here.
That's a good assumption. Yeah.
I'm from Jersey. I know. And Sadie, I have friends who are Jewish who are going to vote for Biden. It's insane to me. I don't understand it. And I got into it with a good friend of mine. He's very far left. And I said to him, I don't understand it. And he goes, you have to understand, I'm not Israeli. I'm an American Jew.
Doesn't matter.
And Israel doesn't play into his world. It just doesn't play into his world. He doesn't care about Israel. And he also, he's very liberal. He believes in socialism, all that stuff. And he was also raised, as a Democrat. Then I have another friend who's a conservative Jew. And so I love having these conversations with Jewish people because it's just so interesting to me. And Catholic and Jewish, we're the only thing that stands between us is the New Testament. Everything else, from childhood, the guilt, the whole bit, we're all the same. We all grew up the same.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So my friend who's conservative said, when I asked him this question, said, you have to understand Jews have been victims or have been told they're victims their entire lives. So they don't know any other way to live than to be victims. So the ones who are really super liberal are just self-loathing Jews who are just fulfilling that I'm a victim because that's where their comfort zone is, because that's where they've lived for generations.
That's a good way to put it, I guess.
What's your take?
I get this question all the time. You're exactly right. This exact question. I'm serious. Every day I have people who I don't know or friends of mine like, why the hell are Jews voting for Democrats? And I have no idea. Because I talk to different Jews about it as well. Like my uncle, great example. I'm not religious. I will be the first to admit that. He is very religious. He's an Orthodox Jew. And I've talked to him about this before. He even said to me, he's like, yeah, the Orthodox sect, they were Democratic. They voted for Democrats for years. But over the last 10 years, at least with Trump, a lot of them have gone towards Republicans due to the fact for this exact reason, Israel. I mean, Donald Trump was the biggest fan of Israel, obviously, moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
Yep.
And then you see what's happening right now with Biden pretty much alienating Israel, our only ally in the Middle East. So it doesn't matter if you're an American Jew, if you're an Israeli, whatever the hell you are. I mean, I've never been to Israel. I want to go one day, but how being a Jew and seeing what's going on, number one, just in this country with the anti-Semitism that is happening with all these protests and the Biden administration just really not doing anything, kind of turning a blind eye, if you will. And then again, being against Israel, it makes no sense. But I feel good about the fact that a lot of the Jews that I know pretty much are voting Republican for the most part. There are obviously outliers, but for the most part, they are voting Republican for a lot of these reasons that we just talked about. And
Yeah.
Israel is the biggest one.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, here in New Jersey, we have a huge Hasidic population.
Yep.
Huge Hasidic
Mhm.
population.
Yep.
And they're very insulated. They don't want to have anything to do with the outside world if you're not part of the group. However, our range where we go shooting every Saturday, boom. Well, actually, Friday until sundown.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
Friday until sundown. The Jewish deli, the Jewish bakery drops donuts off there. They are all there. And you know what? Every single one of them talking about Trump. All of them talking about Trump. When we did the Trump car rally in 2020, they did one in every state the Saturday before the election. So we did the one that was on the Parkway, and it went up the Parkway.
Oh,
And
yeah, I remember that one.
the lead car was a white pickup truck that had a big Israeli flag, a big Trump flag, and was driven by two young boys wearing yarmulkes.
I love it. I'm telling you, the Hasidic population, a lot of them are conservative and big Trump supporters for that reason.
Yep, 100%. But I find my Reformed Jewish friends are more likely to be liberal. And I don't have any Hasidic friends because they don't really like to talk to me.
They won't talk to you, so it doesn't matter.
But they do talk to me at the range.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good.
Which I do find interesting, especially if they have like a dog, and they're teaching their kids how to shoot and how to handle firearms and stuff.
Even and they're teaching the girls?
The girls. When they're every now and then there's a girl there with daddy, and I've gone up to a couple of them and they get all like, and I'm like, good for you. Good for you learning how to shoot, And then dad's like, well, she's got to learn how to protect herself if I'm not home. I'm like, exactly. It's exactly right.
Good parent.
But that's pretty much the only time they talk to me, But still, but my point is that I find, again, the more orthodox you are, the more conservative you are, obviously in a lot of different ways, but also politically. And then the more reformed they are, they tend to be more liberal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. And who knows, like, what's going to happen? Look, God forbid something worse happens in Israel. Maybe the reform will, kind of see the light. I doubt it, but I guess, I'm a half full guy. You're a half empty girl. So, I'm looking at it like that. But it really doesn't make sense. But I do think that there are a lot of closet Jews out there, especially in Jersey, who will vote conservative and will vote for Trump.
You mean Jews who are closet conservatives, not closeted Jews? I don't know a lot of people who are closeted Jews.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I'm not ready to come out as Jewish just yet.
Yeah, exactly. If they're closeted Jews, put some corned beef in front of them with a nice some mustard and all. Like me, I'm there.
This Catholic girl loves it. Come on. I can even understand Yiddish, all right? Because I spoke German, so I can understand Yiddish.
You're good.
I try. I just don't let them know that I can understand. Let's see. Gregory says there's no one more Jewish than Jesus. There you go.
It's
Although
true.
towards the end, not so much, right? Okay, so we've run over the hour, so I'm going to let you go. I try to keep it to an hour, as I said. Thank you so much. People can follow you on X at David Gelman, ESQ.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's where you can find him on X. If you're in need of a lawyer and you're in New Jersey, South Jersey, it's the Gelman Law Firm, right? You're in Cherry Hill?
I am in Cherry Hill. Yep. But we do all Jersey and Pennsylvania. Okay,
well, hopefully I don't need you. No offense.
I agree.
I would prefer not to have to need you. But thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the podcast. If you go back and you watch them, you can get the audio on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Again, just look for Mary Walter Radio under any of those. You'll find them there. Joseph says, thank you. Great thoughts. So Joseph liked you, and Scott says, very interesting show. So thank you for
Thank you, guys.
joining us. And I will be in for Rob Carson the rest of this week, noon to 3 on The Rob Carson Show. It's live on WCBM out of Baltimore, but it's syndicated nationwide. So if it's not on a station near you, you can go to WCBM on TuneIn and you can listen there, or you can go to WCBM online and just listen online on your phone or however you choose to do that. And then Monday, of course, I will be back with Chris Salcedo on the Chris Salcedo Show on Newsmax TV between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, as always. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you again, David. I do appreciate you joining me. Have a fantastic week.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye. Take care.